Hi, this is Mrs. Gaffney. I'll be taking you through the karyotype notes today. We'll start talking about, sorry, my slides are a little behind here. Your DNA, which is your genetic information. We went over those notes recently, so that should be fairly familiar to you. But a couple quick facts. We have about 6 feet in length in each cell, and it's kind of twisted up in there like a yo-yo string. So I don't know, hopefully you guys know what yo-yos still are. When you threw the thing down and flipped it up, after a while it got difficult because it would turn in on itself. Well, your DNA does that as well and packs itself into something called a chromosome. It looks like a blue furry Cheeto over there. I wouldn't recommend eating a blue Cheeto if you saw it, but for chromosomes, run of the mill. So chromosomes are just tightly compacted DNA. They will form either an X or a Y during cell replication. Most of them will be an X. The only time you see a Y is if a male sex chromosome is being made. So genes, we're not talking about the ones you're wearing. Genes are the things that make you, you. They come from your parents. They're made up of segments of DNA, and they're what make proteins. So when we did that whole transcription translation dealio the last assignment, transcription was going from DNA to mRNA. mRNA would take that message out of the cell and find a ribosome, and then that ribosome would take that message and make a protein. So genes are that message that was coded by mRNA and taken to the ribosome. They're made up of nucleotides, like we said. So if you saw this picture and you were supposed to label a gene, a chromosome, DNA, and a nucleotide, it's like levels of organization, if you remember that from way back when we did that in the intro to biology. If you don't remember, little refresher would be you're going from atom to molecule to eventual organism to biosphere. So you're building on complexity. So with chromosomes, we take nucleotide would be the smallest piece. And if you remember, a nucleotide is just a base, a sugar, and a phosphate. The sugar and phosphate make up the outsides of the ladder, and the base is the inside, like the rungs. So we'd go from nucleotide, putting multiple nucleotides together to make DNA, scrunching up that DNA and forming a chromosome, and then the gene would be a stretch of DNA. So if we were to put those in order from smallest or least complex to most complex, we would go nucleotide, DNA, gene, chromosome. That may or may not be a test question, so I'd write that one down. What are some examples of human genes or traits? If you look up hitchhiker thumb, you'll probably see somebody's thumb that can almost bend back to their arm. I've had kids in class like that, and it just gives me the willies every time I see it. Kind of cool though, because I can't do that. And some people's thumbs go straight up. Another one would be widow's peak, so the Dracula hairline, or the straight across hairline like Ken Barbie doll. So that would be another example of a gene. And where do these genes come from? They're coming from your parents. We get a little mix from mom and dad. Turn my phone on silent there. But every human body cell has 46 chromosomes. So you're getting 23 from mom, 23 from dad. And that's a good thing because then you're not a little clone of either your mom or your dad, though some people might tell you you are. I kind of look just like my dad, except the female version. So getting 23 from mom and 23 from dad lets us have this mix of genetics that makes you unique. So does that mean you have 46 genes as well? That would be a no. So what we're looking at here is a cell. Your little friendly yellow circle there circled the nucleus. And then we're going to zoom in. So in your nucleus, you're going to find this, most of the time, this is how your DNA looks, kind of like how Mr. Novak draws. So just a scribble there, it's relaxed, it's hanging out, it's not in chromosome form. And within those scribbles, oops, these are going to take a little while. I forgot. Your little chromosomes, they're all a part of that scribble, but they become condensed only when the cell is getting ready to divide. So the only time you see that X form of them, or like we said, the little Y in case it's a male, is when the cell is getting ready to divide. Otherwise, they're in their relaxed chromatin, there's DNA material and proteins there. So karyotypes are like making a periodic table for biology. So each of those chromosomes has very specific genes that it carries, and we organize those in this table, if you will, so that geneticists can do what they need to do with them when they're analyzing them. So we're going to line them up by size. So your biggest chromosomes come first, and then we're going to match them by their pattern. So you can see that there's these black and white bands on each of the chromosomes. So we're going to line those up by the bands. So when we do that, we get a picture that looks like this. This one's a female. As you can see, you've got 2 chromosomes there on X and none of them on Y. So XX would be female, XY would be male. And notice here too, these don't look like X's in this picture, but what you're looking at is you've got this little area in the center here, that's a protein, and then your 2 sides of your X are actually squished together. So you can't tell, but there's a little line that goes in between there, and this is actually 2 X's next to each other. So you have 2 of each chromosome when the cell is getting ready to divide. So what can we get from a karyotype? We can get number of chromosomes. So you can count how many total are here, and that's important because each species has a specific number of chromosomes, and that's not taking into account disorders, but if you looked at a healthy karyotype, each species is going to have a certain number of chromosomes. So your number of chromosomes, gender, like we said down here, we've got your pair number 23 for humans. You can see this one's a female, so you can tell male or female. You can tell if there are any disorders. So Down syndrome would be trisomy 21. Trisomy meaning we have 3 chromosomes here instead of 2. And then you can tell if it's haploid or diploid, which we'll get to for vocabulary words as we're going through these notes. But diploid just means you've got 2 chromosomes per number. You can see the numbers on your karyotype here. And the sex chromosomes will always be last. So diploid meaning you've got 2 chromosomes per number, haploid meaning you only have 1. So when we get a pair of chromosomes on a number, we call that a homologous pair. That prefix homo meaning same. So they're carrying the same genes, that pair of chromosomes, but they're carrying different versions of that gene. So for example, let's say eye color, which has multiple genes involved, is at this location here on your chromosome. This one might say, okay, we've got 3 dominant genes here, so we're going to go darker with the eye color, and this one might have 0. So maybe this parent had blue, which is less pigment. So you can carry different versions of the same gene, and actually those things can be turned on or off with something called epigenetics, which is your environment's effect on your chromosomes and your genetics, which is how if you have identical twins who do have the same DNA, they can end up, taking on different traits, or one gets cancer and one doesn't. And that's due to which versions of traits they're carrying and if the environment turns them on or off. And environment can be hormones too. So people going through cancer sometimes can change hair textures, can change eye color. Puberty can do that. That's a big change internally. So I guess that would be the application of carrying different versions of the gene. An autosome is anything that's not a sex chromosome. So for humans, because we have 46 total chromosomes, 1 through 44 here would be called autosomes, and then your sex chromosomes would be the X and the Y here, so pair number 23. And of course, they determine gender, so sex chromosomes. It doesn't mean that they carry They only carry characteristics for making males or females, though, because that X carries a lot of really important genes on it that aren't just for females. I mean, males have one as well. So diploid, like we said, you can see the numbers in here. So we have 23 pairs. So that N would be that 23. And diploid means you've got 2 per number. So you've got 2 of each of those chromosomes. Haploid, you would see that with sex chromosomes for humans. Actually, bees, all the males are haploid, which is kind of interesting. So depending on what organism you're talking about, that haploid can mean different things. But for humans, that would mean the egg or the sperm, because we have to combine those two to get a fertilized egg or a zygote in order to form that baby and keep things going. So you get half of your genetics from mom and half from dad. So N, in this case 23, would just be the number of types of chromosomes that you have. Okay, so looking at this, what do you think, haploid or diploid? So I'll give you a little bit to answer here. And this one would be haploid because you've got one per number. Okay, haploid or diploid? This one would be diploid because you can see you've got 2 of every type of chromosome here. Remember, each number is a type of chromosome. Circle one homologous pair, or in your brain, get one that you think is a homologous pair. So remember, homologous means homo meaning same. So we're talking about 2 of the same chromosome. So you could say any number here, 1 through 23 would be a homologous pair. Okay. Where are the sex chromosomes on this karyotype? Hopefully you said pair number 23, where the X and the Y are, because that would be your answer. Okay, is this male or female? This one would be female. Remember, 2 chromosomes on the X means female, so XX is female, XY is male. And then this is just a little bit of a review for DNA, so you can flip through those. But we're going to go to types of cells. So somatic cells would be regular cells, soma meaning body. So these are your body cells. So anything that's skin, muscle, bone, basically everything except for the sex cells or except for egg and sperm are considered somatic cells. So somatic cells have 46 chromosomes. If you remember with mitosis, that means you're going to start and end with the same number of chromosomes. And they are diploid because they're not going to make a new organism. So every time that cell divides, it's going to make the same cell as it did before, if you will. So for instance, if you get a little cut on your toe and it has to heal up, mitosis is going to fix that with diploid cells. So you're not getting any input from, another human being for that. It's just your body fixing that by itself. On the other hand, gametes, which is another name for sex cells, those are haploids because you need another human to combine those to make a new organism. So you're going to have genetic variation that way, which is really important because then you get all of these different traits within a population. And we'll get to that more in evolution on, how that helps the survivability of a species. Okay, so another review, put these in order from smallest to largest, and really what we're meaning is the least complex to the most complex. So the answer here would be nucleotide, gene, chromosome. So you can have multiple genes per chromosome. And you might have, 1,000 some on the X chromosome, and then your little Y chromosome maybe has 180. So it can vary on how many per gene, how many genes per chromosome. And that is karyotypes.